Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Paul Harris and I'm president of the City Club's Board of Directors. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Timothy McGinty, prosecutor of Cuyahoga County in Ohio. Mr. McGinty returns to the City Club where prior to his election victory in November 2012, he participated in a debate among the 5 candidates for the office of the prosecutor, moderated by Jeff Mearns, then the provost of Cleveland State University. And I have to say, I recall that debate was both lively and civil, which we love here at the City Club. Mr. McGinty is a lifelong resident of Cuyahoga County who attended St. Edward High School and Heidelberg College before earning his law degree from Cleveland State University's Cleveland Marshall College of Law. He also earned a master's degree in judicial studies from the University of Nevada, Reno. Mr. McGinty has a long history of commitment to public service. He served as a county probation officer shortly after graduating from Heidelberg and later served as Cuyahoga County Assistant Prosecuting Attorney, during which he prosecuted the high-profile 1989 prosecution of Ronnie Shelton, the so-called West Side rapist. In 1992, he won the first of 4 elections to the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court, where he served as a judge for over 19 years. One of his passions as judge was concerns about the way in which attorneys were appointed to represent indigent defendants, and I'll say more on that in a moment. In his campaign and after his election as county prosecutor, he advocated for a justice system predicated on fairness, efficiency, transparency, and accountability to victims, taxpayers, and people charged with crimes. Mr. McGinty's areas of focus as county prosecutor have included launching a DNA cold case initiative task force to address the backlog of evidence waiting to be forensically tested and thereby bring justice to sexual assault victims whose cases have, quote, gone cold, close quote. He has also created a public corruptions unit and has committed his office to comprehensive training, performance-based assessments, and the highest ethical standards. And he has continued his focus on the assignment of lawyers for indigent defendants, a matter that he recently agreed to defer to the Ohio Supreme Court to settle. In a recent Cleveland.com story on that agreement, Mr. McGinty stated that the court's involvement, quote, means the county's current unregulated and embarrassing assignment system is as dead as the daily machine in Chicago, end quote. Today, Mr. McGinty will present on how his office has performed against the foundational commitments that he established for the office. Then he will take questions as part of our traditional City Club question and answer period. I present, on behalf of the City Club of Cleveland, Timothy McGinty, Cuyahoga County Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for that generous introduction. Early one evening in October 2013, I walked with police down a hillside toward a wooded sliver of land near Tremont, an area where the 3 interstates I-71, 90, and 490 crisscross. We were following a handcuffed career criminal named Elias Acevedo, who had just confessed to murdering Pamela Penderton in 1994 and a string of rapes. Acevedo led us to a manhole cover. Officers from the FBI Violent Task Force lifted the top. We peered inside. Down below, we saw a skeleton, still dressed in the jacket she left home in 1994. It was Christina Atkins, who was 18 when she disappeared in January of that year. Incredible work by these FBI agents, Cleveland police officers, and sheriff's detectives, and our own prosecutors that day brought closure to 2 families who had spent more than 18 years wondering what happened to their daughters. Bringing justice to families like those of Christina Atkins and the other murder solved that day, Pamela Penderton, is why we are county prosecutors. When I came to the City Club 3 years ago as a candidate, I laid out goals that were clear-cut and designed to transform the criminal justice system through a new culture of openness, accountability, and corroboration. We aimed high. My promise was to manage the prosecutor's office as a business-like, apolitical enterprise answerable to the people. Refocus the limited resources of law enforcement to to the most dangerous criminals and to move low-level cases into treatment or rehabilitation quickly. Reform the criminal justice system to improve performance with the objective of restoring public confidence in the county prosecutor's office, the criminal justice system, and the integrity of our county government. Back then, I had no idea we would be confronted by the Castro case with its intense international focus on this city. It required massive collaborative effort by our law enforcement partners. But the prosecutor's office, Cleveland Police Department, FBI, and Bureau of Criminal Investigation set a new standard on cooperation with the Sheriff's Department, one that has served us well since including the Acevedo case. Together we met that challenge, and Castro was convicted, sentenced to a life without parole, plus a millennium in prison, and even had his house torn down, all within 90 days. And the church bells rang to celebrate the triumph of those 3 young women who defeated him. In 2012, I did not anticipate an out-of-control police chase that culminated with the killing of 2 unarmed civilians and the indictment of 6 total officers, or a brutal heroin epidemic that kills without regard of race, class, or geography, and whose victims exceed those of homicides in this area the last 2 years. Or that blowing the dust off untested rape kits would yield a gold mine of criminal leads, solve decades-old murders, including that of Gloria Pointer and others, and give us a chance to prosecute 1,000 rapists, many of whom are serial rapists. We have done a lot in these 2 years, and we've learned a lot from each experience, and we are growing, and we have more growth to do. We have made mistakes, and we are trying to correct them as we move. I have been reminded daily of how lucky I am and how talented and dedicated our staff at the prosecutor's office is. I have developed new appreciation for the importance of compassionate victims advocates. They are our secret weapons, and they help bring convictions and justice. I learned anew how difficult it is to change a culture of silos and secrecy and bureaucracy, and what we can accomplish when everybody works together. And yet, those promises made in 2012 remain the guiding principles of everything we do at our office. If anything, they are more important as a fundamental purpose in the integrity of the entire criminal justice system in Cuyahoga County and nationally has been called into question. And it's a healthy re-examination of what we do and what our policies are. Perhaps the place where culture has changed most dramatically is our office itself. Ours is a very large office and with many important responsibilities to the public, which we take very seriously. We have 211 lawyers. Jones Day, the region's largest private law firm, has 220, and we have a total of 348 employees. Last year we handled more than 10,000 adult criminal felony cases, another 5,500 juvenile cases, and that doesn't count over 10,000 child support or appeals cases, or our representation of dozens of agencies throughout this entire county. It is too big and too important to the public not to be run like a business. So I hired a proven public administrator, Jane Platten, as chief of staff. Under Jane's leadership, we have modernized and professionalized how we budget and manage and how we hire, evaluate, and promote. We are committed to diversity, and our numbers prove it. We are a staff that reflects Cuyahoga County itself. So I want to thank Jane right here, right now, for all you've done. Eager for new ideas, we've done a number of things, such as sending a team to Manhattan to observe the data-driven tools developed by a much larger and better prosecuting attorney's office, the district attorney, Cyrus Vance. We've copied some of his innovations, notably our new conviction integrity unit, which is pretty much a total rip-off, and he doesn't mind. We have borrowed from other higher-performing jurisdictions. In October, we organized a summit in Cleveland for colleagues from Memphis and Detroit to address our backlogs of rape kits and never tested for DNA. They are in the same process as we are, and we are learning together from each other's mistakes and successes. This is new. This is something new to the country and new to us. and that's progress. We have asked our IT team to create and continually refine statistical measures of how we perform and also how our entire criminal justice system performs. And that is on our website, and we're continually improving that. We have massive improvements in mind that'll be up soon. Those measurements are the centerpiece of what we do. We examine ourselves, what we're doing, how we affect the criminal justice system, how our successes and failures affect it, and thus affect the public. Public agencies need to tell taxpayers what they're doing with their money. They are the stockholders, and we are reporting. And we are not done with our improvements. Soon we will post statistics from comparable counties to provide benchmarks and begin the hard process of setting goals within our criminal justice system of how we can improve performance and time in the jail, assigning counsel, and better production all across the board and better justice. Successful businesses do that all the time, and so should government. In that vein, I urge County Council, and some members are here and we appreciate it, and we appreciate all the support in this process, to follow through on its 2013 statement that they intended to commission an annual performance audit of the criminal justice system, including our prosecutor's office. Half of the county's budget is spent on criminal justice. Lives are at stake. Keeping politics out of the prosecutor's office is another pillar of this new project. Employees of the prosecutor's office can no longer serve in elected office, nor can they be political party officials. They must, to stay in office with us, commit to working for all the people of Cuyahoga County all the time without hint of conflict. And we are in the business of justice 24/7. Our prosecutors now go to the scene of all the homicides, and they seldom happen during the day because I get the call also, just for assignment, and drug overdoses, and those scenes we consider homicide scenes regardless of the time of day. We don't sit back and wait for major cases to drop in our laps. We step into it early, we get an early start, we get involved, we take responsibility. We are committed to promptly recognizing and aggressively pursuing the worst criminals, those who wantonly kill, those who prey upon the vulnerable, who destroy the quality of life in our neighborhoods. We do not want to see another Anthony Sowell slip through. Data tells us that offenders that are of these habitual nature are relatively small in percentage and are responsible for a great higher percentage of their number, 2/3 or more of the violent, dangerous crime. So by focusing on these repeat violent offenders, we make wiser use of our limited resources: police, prosecutors, courts, judges, bailiffs, public defenders, all across the board, and we thus make the communities more safe. We increase the public's confidence in the criminal justice system, its effectiveness and its integrity, and the future of Cuyahoga County. Our proactive, engaged prosecutors make a difference. They are capable of noticing the connections that stretch from the molesters who use the internet to prey on children, to the human traffickers or pimps who enslave vulnerable young women with heroin, to the drug dealers who peddle death. They build the racketeering cases against burglary rings and street gangs. They ferret out public corruption in a county that has already been hurt by too much of it. Because our prosecutors have developed close working relationships with federal, state, and local agencies, including the medical examiner's office, we can and we are in a position to connect the dots. We work as part of a team far more effectively than we do as individual agencies. We are learning that lesson, and we continue to expand upon it. Our sexual assault task force exemplifies this new culture. It is a model of targeting the worst of the worst. And to tell you more about that, I'm asking Rick Bell, our Chief of Special Investigations, to the microphone.
Thank you, Tim. In January of 2013, Attorney General Mike Duane came to our office and advised Tim McGinty that the Attorney General's office was testing what would be 4,300 kits stored at the Cleveland Police Department property room. He told us that we should expect that at least half of these tests would result in finding DNA. We had a problem. The statute of limitations is 20 years, and the cases would soon run out of time if we did not prosecute them. With the resources provided by our Chief of Staff, we immediately promoted 3 prosecutors, and we hired additional investigators to assist the Cleveland Police Department. Soon after, Tim greenlighted our first John Doe indictment. Within 2 months, we would learn the identity of that John Doe, and he was convicted of another crime, sent to prison, and swabbed. To preserve those prosecutions, we have indicted 73 John Doe defendants. Together, we, in our office, overseeing investigators and police officers, have seen the completion of 721 investigations. We have indicted 244 defendants and already convicted 66. We have a 90% conviction rate. In September, we diverted our task force resources to track down the early morning rapist who had attacked women in Lakewood and the Edgewater Park areas. In the course of that investigation, we learned that James Daniels III was tied to a 2000 rape kit. That told us that we needed to accelerate our efforts, and with extra resources from the state and county council, we are expanding our task force from 13 investigators to 30. We now think we can clean up the entire backlog of cases within 2 years. This Wednesday, we indicted Moses Clark for 3 more rapes that he committed in October of 2006. 30% of these prosecutions are serial rapists. These indicted rapists already have cost our county $122 million in economic harm. They have long criminal histories for burglary and domestic violence, and targeting these 1,000 criminals will make our community safer. We are the national leader in this area. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the task force and Rick Bell for the work that is so important it is performing. Many women in our community will not be raped because of their work, because these men are habitual criminals, career criminals who we have learned are continuing to commit crime while they're out. I must also thank the Attorney General, Mike DeWine, without whose leadership, vision, and resources we could not do this. Other cities are still scrambling to figure out how they're going to pay for their testing or how they're going to get started on their backlog kits. And that's not so here in Ohio, and especially Cleveland. DeWine's absolute determination to test all old rape kits has set a new standard for law enforcement. All 50 states are going to be following the lead of Ohio in the city of Cleveland. The city of Cleveland had the foresight to step forward and move these kits, and we know other cities across the country are now doing so. I'd like to thank also the Cuyahoga County Council for the $1.3 million it is given to hire the needed extra investigators to the task force. Their support and recognition, that of Cuyahoga County Council and Executive, throughout this process has been essential to taking these rapists off the streets. With these additional resources from the county and the Attorney General, we will bring these dangerous criminals to justice, and sooner, before they can harm others. But delivering justice involves more than prosecuting crime. For more than a decade, I have strongly encouraged reform efforts to front-load our criminal justice system, and we will continue to do so. We are now working with the Cleveland Police, the Sheriff Bova, and the Common Police Court to create a central booking system where all the people arrested without warrants will be without delay brought in for processing, where their cases will be carefully evaluated by prosecutors, police, social workers, court officials, to develop the appropriate charges quickly, or to decide if there's no case or deserves a reductions we'll talk about in a moment. We will also assess the danger a suspect poses based on his history and the facts of the most recent crime, right at the point of arrest, not a month or so later. We need to get all defendants a lawyer sooner, not later. An engaged defense attorney can help bring the low-level cases, which constitute the vast majority of the cases we receive, over 80%, to a prompt and just conclusion. Nothing good can happen until these defendants have an attorney. And we again invite the public defender to join us in this reform effort. Finally, we wish to revive the Cuyahoga County's proven successful early disposition court so that non-dangerous offenders can be fast-tracked into treatment or other alternatives they need. They shouldn't sit in jail, miss school, or lose jobs because they don't have a lawyer and they can't get the system started. Needless to say, delay wastes money and is the enemy of justice. Coincidentally, I was just talking to the state public defender, Tim Young, who was called to offer support for this project, and he noted that we both have the same statement on our front page of our website. Justice, in quoting Gladstone, justice delayed is justice denied. It's not often that the state public defender and the prosecutor are on the same page. We are on this. We are on the same page that we want to achieve justice. And delivering justice early and admitting errors and righting wrongs is part of it. Last year, we established a conviction integrity unit, which I told you we pilfered from New York because it's a great idea. And we have senior prosecutors examining new claims of innocence. So far, they have reviewed 70 cases. And when confronted with evidence of an error, we will do what is right. We did just that in 3 men convicted of murder in 1975. Last year, the key prosecution witness, who was only 12 at the time, recanted his testimony, and when we re-examined it, we realized a mistake was made. Our prosecutors became convinced that the 3 defendants had been wrongly convicted, and we stood up in court and said so. And there have been other cases. When I came to this office, we were seeking the death penalty as an office in 78% of the death penalty eligible cases. In the past 2 years, we have sought it 4 times. We've reduced it to 7.5% of the eligible cases. Twice we've asked Governor Kasich to commute death sentences and twice sustain them. I do not oppose the death penalty, but I do believe it should be very, very carefully reserved for only the strongest and most heinous cases. Doing so also saves money and valuable resources to be used in other cases because capital cases are so extremely complicated, and they have to be. The worst thing imaginable would be to execute an innocent person. In the long run, with this reform, we expect to get more convictions by charging fewer cases. The pursuit of justice drives everything we do in this office. I am proud to say that our Assistant Prosecuting Attorney, Katie Mullen, convinced the Supreme Court of the United States to hear her arguments on March 2nd coming that will improve the rules of evidence for preventing child abusers from getting away with their crimes and harming others. Justice is about standing up for the safety of abused children and fragile families, and about enforcing child support awards so that struggling families can get the money to which they need to live. For too long, these tasks were separate from one another in our office. But last fall, I asked Yvonne Billingsley to lead a new and unified family division. Yvonne, please tell us about the reorganization.
Thank you, Tim. The Cuyahoga County, our new family law division, has 2 clients. It's the Division of Children and Family Services and the county's Job and Family Services Office of Child Support Services. The Division of Family and Children's Services is responsible for keeping children who are at risk of abuse or neglect safe. Children must be removed and protected in a family if their own families are unsafe. The Office of Child Support Services is responsible for establishing, monitoring, and enforcing child support, and also establishing paternity. Both agencies provide programs and services which strengthen families and also foster self-reliance. As prosecutors, we act as gatekeepers so that children are not unnecessarily removed from their homes. As enforcers, so that obligors who can pay child support but will not are held accountable. And for those who want to pay but cannot, we offer alternatives to incarceration through the Office of Child Support Services. We strive to ensure that the laws are properly applied and that the legal process produces just results. In the Family Law Division, we collaborate with our partners and our stakeholders and our courts to help our clients better serve at-risk families and children. It's hard work. Our cases involve families in violent relationships, families that abuse alcohol and drugs, families that abuse and neglect their children, families with untreated mental health illnesses, families struggling with unemployment and homelessness, families too poor to meet the basic needs of their children. All those factors put children at a higher risk of being harmed and exploited, or of becoming unruly, delinquent, and eventually the next generation of criminals who degrade our communities. But if we make a difference now, then down the road, our communities will be stronger and our streets safer.
Thank you, Yvonne. And in a moment, we'll also hear from Duane Deskins from the Juvenile Unit. You'll see that we're building towards the future in Cuyahoga County to prevent crime and prevent where it comes from. Your vital but often underappreciated team does a great deal for the children of this county. And it affects more families than any other division, although it's far lesser known and appreciated. So we do thank you. Crimes we can prevent are cases we do not have to prosecute, and victims and communities who will not suffer. So we look for opportunities to make a difference before there is a crime. Yvonne's work is one. Last week we hosted a day-long seminar on another issue, domestic violence, for more than 200 prosecutors, police officers, court personnel, defense attorneys, and advocates for the victims. Last year we had 12 domestic violence homicides, 3 over 8 horrible days in September that received a great deal of publicity. It is a crime we take very seriously, and we are reforming the way we do business. We're re-examining our procedures together with all our other partners, the courts and the police and the defense. We are learning to identify situations that are most likely to erupt into lethal violence and to intervene appropriately and promptly. The promptly is so important. We are sharing information so no one slips through the cracks with minimum bond and returns to kill the spouse. We do this front-loading, close examination as our goal. Heroin now kills 200 of our neighbors each year. We are now prosecuting dealers for manslaughter. We are leading the way in Ohio in that regard. We have, in order to discourage and deter, we have, and achieve justice, we have launched a public education campaign that Joe Froelich and Debbie Naiman are working on, which is teaming up with scores of local partners to spread the word about heroin's extreme dangers and the help that is available to addicts and families. Collaboration between law enforcement and education is the only way out of this epidemic, and it will not be easy. And I do not say we are winning this war. We are not in retreat, but I have not seen it peak. Unfortunately, there's a great deal of work to be done. Abandoned properties are virtual accessories to many crimes. Rapists, murderers, and drug dealers use them as havens. The last Cleveland police officer killed in the line of duty, Derek Owens, in 2008, died investigating a crime at a vacant property. Abandonment erodes property values and destroys neighborhoods. It furthers the exodus. That's why I'm pleased to announce today that we are giving the City of Cleveland more than $2 million in tax delinquency funds that the prosecutor's office controls for targeted demolitions near the main campuses of Metro Health on West 25th Street and the Cleveland Clinic by Cedar Avenue. Working with these institutions and neighborhood leaders, Mayor Jackson's staff has identified condemned homes whose removal will improve public safety and hasten redevelopment in these communities. The hospitals, the Cleveland Clinic and Metro Health, are committed in this process and reinvesting in these neighborhoods, on these properties or near these properties, and using their police departments to work with CPD to enhance public safety in these areas. We'll have dual jurisdiction patrols. We hope this can be a prototype for the $50 million demolition program the county government is considering and preparing at this time. This will make a huge difference for the city of Cleveland and the county of Cuyahoga. This will make it a safer place. We will not erode, as Detroit and other cities have, and become overwhelmed by exodus and abandonment and foreclosure. This effort builds off a recent grant of $250,000 we made to Councilman Tony Brackatelli, and let's hear it for Tony right here and all the work he's done. And in Slavic Village, that will bring down more than 30 dilapidated homes. That money was came from restitution from convicted felon Blaine Murphy, and will help undo a small amount of the damage he and the other flippers did in Slavic Village. But Slavic Village is a prototype of a neighborhood that's being revived, and it can be done all over this city, and we're excited by it. We're excited by the work that the mayor, Mayor Jackson, City Council, President Kelly, and the County Council, and President Brady are doing, and the work and the accomplishments that $50 million in bonds can do. It's a great investment for this county, and it helps reduce crime. It will help bring value and safety to our lives here in this county. Justice is sometimes a balancing act. Nowhere is that more clear than in the juvenile division, where our prosecutors deal with crime and heart-wrenching violence while also trying to turn around young lives. To talk about this virtual revolution of thought and procedure taking place with the cooperation of a great juvenile court, let me introduce our first Assistant Cuyahoga County Prosecutor and the head of our juvenile division, Duane Deskins.
Thank you, Mr. McGinty, and good afternoon. The Juvenile Division is creating that new culture of accountability and collaboration. We collaborate on the very first juvenile safe surrender, allowing young people to put their lives on a better path and to reduce the risk to law enforcement. The successful program cleared nearly 200 warrants, matching the results of the original fugitive safe surrender. We co-sponsored the very first National Signing Day, a peer-to-peer pledge and best practice to stop high school sexual violence before it spreads to college. A former U.S. Senator observed that occupied kids are not juvenile delinquents. Recognizing this, we published the first ever list of 124 local summer camps for kids. This January 20th, in collaboration with the Juvenile Court, we'll make another major announcement, which ensures fairness and equity in juvenile charging and diversion. 1 year ago, Prosecutor McGinty asked me to lead the Juvenile Division and later to serve as his first Assistant County Prosecutor. We spoke of preventing more than we prosecute. But when a small criminal element threatens public safety, we act aggressively to hold them accountable and deter others. We announced Ohio's first and largest criminal gang case against 43 juvenile members of the Heartless Felons. This violent gang essentially took control of the juvenile detention center through acts of violence, intimidation, and vandalism. A few months later, we charged 38 members of the BBE 900 criminal gang. This notorious and violent gang terrorized the neighborhood around West 98th and Madison, here in Cleveland, engaging in public assaults, burglaries, kidnappings, and murder. Prosecutor McGinty champions collaboration, recognizing, as did Helen Keller, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Duane. Now, there is a dedicated man, came out of his retirement as a federal prosecutor to join us, and is just doing a tremendous job. I thank you. We keep talking about justice because it is really at the core of what we do. And these are challenging times for our criminal justice system at home and across America. And the use of force by police has become a dominant issue. Some people either want a blanket condemnation or a blanket exoneration. But the duty of the prosecutor as well as the police is to protect the public by seeking justice. Our job is not to condemn the police nor protect them. We have separate jobs. And all of us in the justice system must earn the respect of the public and keep earning it every day. And technology can help restore and maintain public confidence and respect. For 25 years, cities across America have been, in essence, experimenting their police cars with dashboard cameras. Video and audio evidence build stronger cases, and they increase the professionalism of officers. They protect the police and the public. They augment the body cams that some departments are experimenting with very successfully, including Cleveland, and will soon wear across the city. Both make a difference. So I have offered the city of Cleveland and other local police departments help in this regard. I have offered the city of Cleveland a $500,000 in forfeiture money taken from convicted criminals to pay half the cost of putting dashboards in every Cleveland police patrol car. This timely partnership with the city, and we're very optimistic and have had fruitful discussions regarding it, will improve the quality of justice we deliver, eliminate many of the problems we have experienced, save money in the long run in lawsuits alone, and greatly improve public confidence. Moving forward, we plan to reform our criminal justice system to make it more efficient, effective, and open. And partners are welcome. With our partners, we must and we will continue to pursue murderers, rapists, and drug dealers as expected and as we've, as an office, always done, because the life of every citizen matters. We also need, however, to partner more, and we're working in it, and with parents and teachers and pastors to make every young person realize there are better ways and honest ways to make a living and peaceful ways to settle disputes without weapons. And by doing these things, we can demonstrate to this community that justice is not just a word on a building. It is a mission for everyone who works here. I remember talking to the family of Christina Atkins that October. They had clung to the hope that someday she might reappear, much as Amanda and Gina and the young ladies did on Seymour Avenue. In fact, her family was there at Metro Hospital when I exited that hospital, not knowing who the third person was. It was so sad that evening. But even with their dreams dashed, they trusted that the criminal justice system would do what's right to the killer of their little girl, and it did. Elias Acevedo, the gentleman I talked about earlier when we began, will never leave prison alive. That family's trust, every family's trust, is a privilege that we in the criminal justice system need to earn every day. I want to thank the City Club for this invitation. And lastly, I'd like to thank my parents who are here today. Jack and Alice celebrating their 65th year of marriage this coming month. If they'd stand, please, right here. And my father, by the way, is still working at UPS. If you need any good stock tips, he's ready to give them to you. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention and thank my wife of over 40 years, Ellen. Thank you.
So we've got some special people at the back there. Sorry we couldn't bring you up toward the front, but thank you for joining us. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are enjoying a Friday forum featuring Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Timothy McGinty. We'll return to him in a moment for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We'll have about 17 minutes or so for that. Start formulating your questions now, and please try to keep them brief and to the point. We welcome all of you here and those joining us via 90.3 WCPN, WVIZ PBS, 104.9 WCLV Ideal Stream, are one of the many radio stations across the region and the country that carry City Club programs. Television broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC, and our live webcasts are supported by the University of Akron. 1 week from today, January 16th, the City Club welcomes Congressman Louis Stokes in conversation with his children, Lori and Chuck Stokes. For more information about our upcoming and past forums, please visit us online at www.cityclub.org. Today, we welcome guests at tables hosted by the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, the Greater Cleveland Congregations, and Fairmount Presbyterian Church, and we thank you all for your support. We also welcome students to today's program from Gilmore Academy, Facing History New Tech, and St. Martin de Porres High School. Student participation today is made possible by the County Prosecutor's Education Fund. Why don't the students who are here stand up and be recognized? There they are. Thank you. Now, as promised, we're going to start our Q&A period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today, and by the way, they do hold them and they don't let go, are City Club volunteer Deborah Hegler and content associate Teddy Eisenberg. First question, please.
First. Hi, I already missed Stanley because I'm so used to him being the first questionnaire and me having the chance to do first. Tim, thanks very much. One I'd like to know, because you mentioned justice several times, and a few weeks ago I stood on the floor of City Council and asked a question to our law director, Barbara Lang Henry, centered on the police officers and the lottery tickets, and the time that they spent at that gas station. And the Justice Department's report that came out a few weeks ago talked about bringing trust back into the police department between the citizens and the community. And her answer to me was that she brought it to you guys, and you guys made a decision that police officers who stole lottery tickets and who took time off and didn't put their time card right didn't commit a crime. So how do I go back to our community and talk to the young people in my community about justice and fairness when it seems like the discretion of this department when it comes to police officers are different than the discretion of a young person who would have stole lottery tickets in my neighborhood?
Did we dump it? Fisher? Okay. Well, thanks, Councilman Reed. I appreciate the question. I appreciate your concern, and I appreciate your leadership and your spirit on the safety committee at the City of Cleveland. We, as prosecutors, have discretion in evaluating cases. Some cases we view as felonies, which we take, and some we view as misdemeanors, which the city prosecutors handle. Cases take time, and they will be carefully evaluated. I'm not familiar with that case being evaluated or completed yet. So, next question.
Sir, thank you. Sir,
thank you.
yes. Should a prosecutor recuse himself from high-profile cases such as the 137 shots fired by Cleveland Police November 2012 when that prosecutor receives campaign benefits from police unions?
That's a good question. It brings to the fundamental issues that we face as prosecutors. We are elected by the people. We go forward with a pledge to the people, as I did, that we be fair, honest, and beholding to no one but what is right and justice. There are many cases we must prosecute. We receive, and I have received, great support from the police in my career, 20-odd years of election. But the good police, I know, want justice done, and they expect justice to be done. I have prosecuted many police officers, and I have known many police officers that are heroes to me. But when they violate the law, or it's another prosecutor who violates the law, or another law enforcement official, we prosecute. We just recently sent and we never feel good about it. We just sent a police officer to prison for 18 years. We just indicted another one. Yesterday we were in court demanding a higher bond and weapons from another police officer. There are thousands of great police officers in this county. And do they make errors? Yes, they do. And do they commit crimes? Yes, they have. And will we prosecute them? Yes, we will. But They are just like any other profession, whether accountants or ministers or priests or physicians. They can make mistakes, but the vast majority of them don't and are worthy of our admiration. And we will do our job. I was elected to do a tough job. It is not easy. I just wish I had all Castros to prosecute. Wouldn't that be easy? A fellow like Ariel Castro. There isn't anybody in the planet Earth who would vote not guilty on that kind of case. It's easy. But we get tough cases too, and that's the challenge we face. That's what we're paid to do. That's our responsibility. And all our prosecutors do that on a regular basis. We don't have to relish and love the job on every case. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes you see a parent who made a mistake, who lost their temper and hurt their child or something. You don't want to see that parent go to prison. You want to see that parent get the drug or alcohol rehabilitation they need, but you have to prosecute it anyhow. And we leave the sentencing to the judge. They have that responsibility. Sometimes we'd like it, but it's not ours, it's theirs, and that's a tough job they have too.
Good afternoon. On November 22nd, 12-year-old Tamir Rice was playing with a pellet gun. He was gunned down by Patrolman Timothy Lohman 2 seconds within the time the police car pulled up. His body lay on the ground for 7 minutes before EMS arrived. Officer Lohman had been called by the City of Independence unfit for duty. He was rejected by Akron, by Parma Heights, and by Euclid. And he was also rejected by our own Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. My question to you is there a chance of Patrolman Lohman being indicted for murder?
Well, I thank you, and that is a very interesting topic that you're on. It's a pending case, so I have not formulated any opinion, nor will I at this point. But I will say this. There is no question that police officers have the toughest and most dangerous job in our city. They constantly risk their lives. We're all aware of that. As we prepared to come in here today, I looked out the window of the City Club and I looked at the St. John's Cathedral to recall some massive funerals where the police had to bury their own, killed in the line of duty. So I remember that side of the issue. I remember the thousands of police officers out the window here on East 9th Street as the caisson and caskets were paraded by. And we also know the other extreme. We know in New York, demonstrated again, there are people who will assassinate police officers. And these facts of the danger that police face certainly justify investments in careful training and in life-saving equipment for the police. But they don't justify a sense of victimhood that we see coming from the New York Union, for instance, right now. Any belief that police are never wrong and never need to reevaluate and reform is itself wrong. The fact that poor tactics, policy, and discipline are a part of all the recent spotlighted tragedies is evident. Police discipline and training also must be improved if we're going to improve performance and raise public confidence. It's a timely issue. We hope that good becomes of it. Police are not just accountable to themselves. Like a prosecutor, they are public servants and must answer for their actions. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for coming. My name is Edward Little. For years in this county, we have talked about the racial bias that is inherent within our criminal justice system. Can you share with us some measures that you are taking to eliminate bias in the prosecutor's office and with the lives and the cases that you touch? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. We are confronting all issues. And racial bias is a hard issue to deal with. It is not a comfortable issue. You know, it's easy to talk about murder in a sense. It's easy but hard to accomplish, as we've discovered, to reduce heroin deaths and manslaughters. But racial bias is something that's difficult to change and difficult to confront. But we are looking at our biases, whether it be racial and gender, economic biases. There are no sacred cows in this system that we're not afraid to look at. And we're looking at it hard. with increased use of diversity and appreciation that all elements of society should be represented in our criminal justice system, not just in the county jail where 3/4 of the population are minority. We want to bring the actors in the criminal justice system to the percentage of the population and to encourage growth. We're tackling all the issues. These are tough issues. When we look at domestic violence last week and over these last months, we're looking at errors. You know, we made errors, and there's, you know, do we over prioritize because of economic reasons? When we look at the rapes that were the rape victims that were underserved, we look back and we see we underserved prostitutes and street people, and they were the canaries in the mine as we see it now. When they were attacked, we should have realized there was a problem. Hindsight is always 20/20. Sometimes it's painful to look at your mistakes. As an old football coach, it was tough to look at the film the next morning sometimes if we lost a game. It was easy if we won the game. But it was hard to see where we went wrong. And oftentimes it was the coaches, not the kids. We made mistakes in the calls. We were looking back at the film, so to speak, and literally. We're looking where we made our mistakes, and we're trying to correct them and take a realistic approach as how to do it. Thank you for your question.
Prosecutor McGinty, as a follow-up to that question, your data sheet you gave us today has a breakdown of your employees in your office by minority and white and female and how it's improved. But let's talk about the real victims, the people who are prosecuted by your office or the people who are victims of those people. What data do you have on the racial makeup of that population? And you said you had a goal in answering the question of getting to the racial makeup of the county, basically, so we're not over-prosecuting one group or another. So is there data available on that, and can you share it with us?
There is, and we have. It's on our website. You go to your smartphone, hit the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, and look at it. We've broken it down, and we're breaking down the population, the victim population, the location of crime population, and we're examining just like Walmart would look at where their customers are, you know, and where are we underserving individuals, and where are the victims. When we look, and we're learning so much. We just hired Case Western Reserve and Mr. Flannery, Professor Dr. Flannery there, and his staff to reevaluate and evaluate what we're doing using rape in Cuyahoga County. Where is rape? How many have been prosecuted? How many should have been prosecuted? Where are the attacks? And immediately in our statistical analysis, and we're not telling them what to conclude, they'll reach their own conclusions. We see clusters of the rapes, and we see it in underserved, under-policed areas and high crime areas. There's nothing new about this. This has been known. We see the serial rapists operating in very particular geographic areas. We're looking for a formula where we can realistically look where these crimes take place, have entry into a new data system, forced entry by all law enforcement agencies. And when we look at someone who we have a count down and a count up rapist, for instance, when he tells people after he attacks them and drags them into a abandoned home and rapes them, count down from 100. We have another guy who has count up from 100. So when other agencies see this count up or the other particulars of the MO of the attacker, we will see we have a serial rapist and we can put them together. Only 2 days ago, and it was reported in yesterday's paper, we had a fellow whose first name was Moses, Moses Clark, who was due to get out of prison. It was his parole day. He'd been in prison since 2006. I was happy to wreck the parole party for Mr. Moses. We just realized that he was responsible for 3 other rapes. He was paroled for another rape in 2006, and he had a 3-month period, and we've now established that he committed 3 other rapes. But we should have, in hindsight, we should have seen it sooner. 2 of the rapes he committed in the same parking lot behind a church in the city here, and there were other particulars. We want to create a system where we're all accountable and we see and we can predict where these crimes are taking place, and we can have better manpower, better distribution of our resources to prevent crime. We are not doing a good enough job preventing crime, and we intend to improve it. Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Larry Heller. Thank you for coming. You spoke about a commitment to preventing crime. You also spoke about focusing on repeat offenders because of the substantial portion of crime they're responsible for. You talked about diversion and fast tracking for nonviolent offenders. Now, we all know that drug offenders can be among the most likely to be repeat offenders. Drug offenders can be responsible for a huge portion of our crime, especially when you include all the thefts and related offenses that go with the drug use. We know we have very effective diversion programs that work here in Cuyahoga County, like our own drug court. But we're only sending a very small percentage of people into these diversion programs. What are your plans to try to make diversion available to more offenders? And more importantly, what can we do to help you achieve that? Because as one of your speakers said, together we can achieve so much.
Well, thank you, Larry. That's a good point. We do not have enough. We do not have enough diversion programs. We do not have enough beds in these treatment centers. We are seeing that in heroin. There's a desperate shortage of beds. There's a desperate shortage of money to fund these programs. And this education, what we're doing, the hundreds of thousands we're spending on education is a drop in the bucket. We hope it has some effect, but we're measuring by the rate of death, and the rate of death is not dropping. The rate of death climbed fivefold in 5 years or thereabouts, and it's not dropping. So we've got a problem. We've got excellent programs going now. We have changed our viewpoint and our attitude, including from when I was a judge or a prosecutor 30-odd years ago. We see that locking them up does not eliminate the drug problem. A combination of sanctions and diversion and treatment are what's needed, so they don't return and pick up where they left off. We are cooperating. The Common Pleas Court and the Cleveland Municipal Court, for example, have two excellent drug treatment programs going on at this time. Judge Mattia, Judge Laster Mays, we are working with them and with the Common Pleas Court to send more people and expand those programs and expand the resources available. We are all learning together. This is how valuable it is. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we have been listening to a Friday forum featuring Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Timothy McGinty. Thank you very much, Mr. McGinty and team. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.